So for lesson number 12, we're going to talk about solving one-step inequalities. Well, one-step, two-step, and inequalities with the distributive property. So the first thing we have to remember is what these symbols stand for. So this one, the one that kind of looks like an L, says is less than. Sometimes you might see is fewer than. This one, going in the opposite direction, is saying greater than. So is greater than, or you might see, or you might say is more than. Then we have this other one, which looks like the is less than symbol, but has a little line under it. And that one says is less than or equal to. So this little line looks like part of the equal sign. So it says both, less than or equal to. It means it can be that number or it can be less than that number. Some other ways to say is less than or equal to would be no more than. So if it's no more than $5, that means it's less than $5, or it can be $5. Another way to say it is at most. And we could add maximum. If I say the maximum amount is $5, then you know it's 5 or less. And then lastly, we have the greater than or equal to. Oops. And another way to say this is no less than, because it can only be greater than or equal to. If it has to be more than, for instance, you have to have a 60 or higher to pass the class, you have to have at least a 60. Or you could say the minimum that you could have to pass is a 60. Okay, so what do these look like on the number line? So if I'm saying X is all numbers that are less than 5, all the numbers less than 5 are this way. Okay, so I'm going to draw a line with an arrow going this way. And then all the numbers less than 5. So is 5 less than 5? The answer to that is no. So we put an open circle here because we are not including 5. We can't move our point or our endpoint down to 4 because there are lots of numbers between 4 and 5. 4.5, 4 3/4, whatever. So we have to go all the way to the 5 to include all the numbers that are in there. So if it's strictly greater than 5, so 6, 7, 8, these are all the numbers that are more than 5. So you're going to draw your arrow this way. And again, 5 is not greater than 5. So it's an open circle because 5 is not part of the solution. Now the difference between strictly less than and less than or equal to, again, all the numbers less than are this way, but 5 is equal to 5. And since we have that little equal to part, we will now fill in that point to include the 5. And in this part, we're going to do the same. So all the numbers greater than 5 are to the right, and we will include 5 this time. So now let's talk about solving. Solving an inequality is just like solving an equation. How do I solve this equation? I will subtract the 2 from both sides, which leaves me with x equals 3. Over here, same difference. I'm going to add the 2. Whoops, that's supposed to be a plus 2. I'm going to subtract the 2 from both sides, which gives me s is less than 3. So we did the same steps. It's always the same steps. Except whenever we multiply or divide by a negative number, so a negative, whenever we multiply or divide by a negative number, we flip the symbol. Okay, what do I mean by that? Here is an inequality for me to solve. We have to remember this is multiplication and the opposite is to divide. So I have x, and 12 divided by negative 2 is negative 6. And here is what we were talking about. We just divided by a negative number. And so that means we have to flip this symbol over. So instead of greater than or equal to, it's less than or equal to. This is the one difference. Everything else is the same. Okay, so let's solve some inequalities real quick. Here we are. Here's my variable. I have to move the 15 over here. So I'm going to subtract it. That's the opposite. And that gives me r is less than or equal to. I did not multiply or divide by a negative, so this is not going to flip the symbol. 15 minus 15 is 0. Now, what is that going to look like on the number line? I'm going to put 0 here. I want all the numbers less than or equal to 0. Less than are all the numbers this way, and then 0 is included because of the or equal to. So here is my solution as an inequality and a graph. Looking over here, here's my variable. So this is one of those where I'm going to move to the left. The opposite of subtract is add. So I'm going to add 13. Negative 25 plus 13 is negative 12, is less than or equal to x. Now, here's the thing. We read from left to right, so this is kind of backwards. Negative 12 is less than all of our solutions, which means all of our solutions are greater than or equal to negative 12. So when you see the variable on the right-hand side, you really need to flip it over so that you will graph it correctly. So all the numbers bigger than negative 12 are going to be this way, and it is or equal to, so I will put an open circle. For this one, we have to remember that that is a division symbol, and the opposite of divide is to multiply. So bring down the x. And did I multiply by a negative number? I did not. This number is negative, but the number that I moved is positive. So I will not flip the symbol. Negative 1 times 5 is negative 5. What does that look like on the graph? All the numbers less than negative 5 are to the left, and the or equal to tells me I use a closed circle. Here, I have multiplication, so to undo that, I will divide. So I'll bring down my x, and this time I did divide by a negative number, so I will flip the symbol. 14 divided by negative 7 is negative 2. So I go to negative 2. All the numbers less than are on the left-hand side, and then it's strictly less than negative 2, so I'll use an open circle here. All right, now we're going to get into some two-step and some multi-step. So here's my variable. the first thing I have to do is undo subtraction by the opposite, which is add. Negative 30 plus 10 is negative 20. Bring down less than or equal to 5n. Then this is multiplication, so I will divide both sides by the 5. Again, I'm dividing by a positive, so I will not flip that symbol for division. Negative 20 divided by 5 is negative 4. Now what I notice is that I do have my variable on the wrong side. So if negative 4 is less than my solutions have to be greater than negative 4. And to graph this, I'm going to use the closed circle this way. Whoops, I forgot to include my. For number 6, we have to remember that when we see parentheses, we're going to use the distributive property. 5 times x is 5x. 5 times 5 is 25. I will undo addition by subtracting first. 60 minus 25 is 35. Then I will divide by the 5 to get 7 is greater than x, which I don't like. So if 7 is greater than all the answers, then all the answers have to be less than 7. So less than is going to be to the left, and it's just less than, so I use an open circle. All right, over here, I'm going to distribute again. Negative 6 times a is negative 6a. Negative 6 times negative 2 is positive 12. The first thing I have to do is undo addition by subtracting. So I have negative 6a is greater than. Negative 18 minus 12 actually is a negative 30. And then my last step here is to undo multiplication by dividing. So I have a negative 30 divided by negative 6 is a positive 5. And then I did divide by the negative, so I'm going to flip that symbol. So all the numbers less than 5 are this way, and it's strictly less than 5, so I use an open circle. For my last example, I'm going to undo addition by subtraction. So I have negative 5n is greater than or equal to 37 minus 2 is 35. I'll undo multiplication by dividing. So in here, I did divide by a negative, so I will flip. 35 divided by negative 5 is negative 7. So on the number line, the numbers less than are left, and it's less than or equal to, so I include that negative 7.